Hi everyone, how are you doing today? Well, there's been a lot of buzz on the internet about this new Wuthering Heights adaptation. I use the word adaptation very lightly, as I've been looking into it more and more, somewhat reluctantly, because I wasn't really champing at the bit for a new Wuthering Heights adaptation anyway. But as I've been looking into it more, I've found out a number of unpleasant details about it, such as the egregious miscasting of Heathcliff and the amount of smut that is in the, shall we say, quote, artistic interpretation of the book. So, between those two details, I've decided not to watch it. And yet, I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice to offer the dear listener some alternatives, some things you can watch instead of Wuthering Heights if you're hankering after a great adaptation of a classic book, and particularly a classic romance. Now, I've watched quite a few of these adaptations over the years, and I'm just going to offer to you my top 10 here. These are mostly chaste romantic dramas. I think the worst any of them would be is a PG-13, so fine to watch with your family, with your older kids. And most of these are pretty faithful adaptations, with a few exceptions. But I think they all capture the spirit of the original book, if they are based on a book, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But first off, I think any such list would be remiss if it didn't mention North and South, the 2005 TV series. This is based on an Elizabeth Gaskell novel, which I did read. I think I read it after I saw the TV series. You know, I actually don't really care for the romance in this very much, but I think it is, if anything, a love letter to classic literature and classic literature adaptations, because you can just see the care that the director and scriptwriter put into the series. It is so deeply moving and touching as it follows this young woman and her move from the south of England to the north of England and the culture shock that she experiences and her struggling with grief in different areas of life. And at the same time, it does a wonderful job of portraying some of the side characters, supporting characters, the different classes of people in this setting in industrial England. And yeah, I just think it's one of the best adaptations out there. Again, not necessarily for the romance, because it's not really my cup of tea, but really enjoy it as an adaptation. So that's North and South, very passionate. So if you're looking for some passion without any bodice ripping, would definitely recommend North and South. The next one on my list is a childhood favorite, and that is Little Women. Now, I've seen 3 versions of this. There's the classic Winona Ryder version that I grew up with. That one's more of an abbreviated adaptation, so it's missing quite a bit from the book. There's also the 2019 version, which has gotten quite a bit of recognition in recent years, and that tells the story through a series of flashbacks. And then there's my favorite version, which is the 2017 BBC series, and I really like this one because I think it really captures the spirit of the original, including the religious Christian themes, and I think the cast is very strong. And I just love it so much. It's a beautiful series, but I think you can't really go wrong with that one or the Winona Ryder version. And then I don't care for the 2019 one as much, but it was interesting. And I think if you've read the book, it's an interesting take on it. So that's Little Women. Kind of in the same space, I think, is Cranford from 2007. Cranford was very popular, at least in the US, when it came out. And I think I've grown to love it more upon rewatch. I think when I first saw it, it was nice, but it didn't really leave a deep impression. But I've seen it two or three times since then, and it just really grabbed me. I think what I love about Cranford is it covers several different types of romance, including first young love, and then the love between people that have been separated for a long time and are rediscovering that connection, that relationship. And along with that, it's just got a lot of fun village antics in it. So It's definitely on the more light side, but there are some very serious parts of it as well, and it grapples with, again, industrialization, the railway coming to this small village, and also it deals with themes of old age. So it actually covers quite a lot, and I think there's something for everyone in Cranford. Number 7 on my list, and this is again for those of you looking for that passionate romance, you've got The Scarlet Pimpernel from 1982. This is a story set in the French Revolution, and it follows the frustrated marriage of Marguerite, this lady who is married to a foppish and boring and droll character, her husband Percy. And as she's struggling with this marriage, there's also rumors of this superhero, basically, this guy who is going out and rescuing people from the guillotine as the reign of terror emerges. And, it's just a good swashbuckling story. It's not that deep, but I do like the portrayal of the marriage in this, and I think in particular Anthony Andrews does such an excellent job of playing Sir Percy in this version. And you've also got a young Ian McKellen playing his adversary, and that's just a joy to watch as well. So big fan of The Scarlet Pimpernel, and there's some lovely costumes in it as well. Also from the French Revolution, you've got A Tale of Two Cities. Now, I think this is very much overdue for a new adaptation. Surprisingly, it doesn't have as many adaptations as you would expect for such a famous novel, but I love the 1989 version. I think it stars James Wilby, and I can't remember the actress's name, but she's superb. And yeah, it's just a touching, beautiful adaptation, and the music is fantastic. I think the music is probably my favorite part. But another good one for you hopeless romantics out there. Number 5 on my list has to be Jane Eyre. And, I've seen a few different versions of Jane Eyre, including the old one with Orson Welles. My favorite is probably the 1983 series with Timothy Dalton. But I think what I will recommend to you, if maybe you haven't seen any adaptations before, I would recommend the 2011 adaptation, because I think it is the most, how to put it, I think it's very immediate. I think that the casting is very, very strong, and I think it's just beautiful visually as well. I really like the lead actress. She's just so good as Jane Eyre, and I think captures Jane Eyre's outward plainness but her inner beauty so well. And I think the actress is a very beautiful actress, don't get me wrong, but I think I do appreciate that this version of the story is really trying to capture what Bronte was writing, which is this small, timid, shy, plain woman, and the great romance of her life, and all the trauma that kind of leads her to and out of it. So yeah, Jane Eyre, a classic, of course. So my favorite Jane Austen novel is Emma, and I've seen some versions of Emma, and I honestly feel like you can hardly go wrong with watching Emma. The Gwyneth Paltrow version is a classic for a reason. It's great. You've got Jeremy Northam playing Mr. Knightley in that, and he's extremely charming. Very, very good casting there. The most recent 2020 film is also a visual treat. I think it's a very good adaptation as well. My favorite is the BBC series from 2009. You'll hear me say BBC a lot. I just think they have done some very good adaptations, especially from like the 90s through the 2000s, the 2010s as well. Yeah, I really like this particular series. I think the costume design is particularly beautiful, and I really like how Emma and Mr. Knightley are portrayed in this one. I just love their dynamic. It's just so much fun. Now, number 3 on my list is not, as far as I know, based on a novel, and it is France, which is a 2016 film. It is black and white, and it takes place just after World War I believe. Sorry if there's some background noise. I think that's the fridge or something that just came on. So France is, I think, one of the most romantic films I've ever seen. It's just about misunderstandings, loyalty, and forgiveness. And I don't want to say much more about it because it's kind of a bit of a mystery as well. And ultimately, it is what I would call a life-affirming film. Now, I say that with a bit of a smile because I've seen quite a few of those recently, and it can kind of feel a bit tropey or silly, but I think France is a life-affirming film in a way that feels so sincere and hope-giving. And I think if you've ever experienced disappointment in love or, the harsher edges of life and relationships, France will really speak to you and yet leave you with, this feeling of peace. So I just love France. I could go on. Number 2 on my list is Wives and Daughters. Now, I got to see like the first episode or 2 when this first came out, and I was still a child at the time, and I felt so very grown up. But I do love Wives and Daughters. It is a story of 2 sisters, half sisters, very different women. Cynthia, who's very social, bubbly, and a bit flighty, and then there's Molly Gibson, who's our heroine, and she's quiet and meek, and it's a really good story though, and full of little twists and turns. I've not read the original book yet, but I do love watching Wives and Daughters, and I think it has a happy ending. I believe it does. So there you go. And then last but not least, Little Dorrit from 2008. I loved Little Dorrit so much that really it's what got me into book blogging and trying to find a bookish community online in a dedicated way, because I've been blogging about books a little bit before that, but Little Dorrit really got me into the bookish community proper. And of course that led to later podcasting and YouTube, and here we are. But Little Dorrit is for all of you shy brunettes out there. It's about, Little Dorrit, Amy, who, she just, I don't know how else to put it, but she lives in a family. Her family is not very nice to her. I think that's the best way to put it. They don't appreciate her fully. They take advantage of her, and she is a seamstress, and she doesn't seem to have many prospects in life. But being a Dickens novel, a Dickens story, there's a lot more going on, a lot more other threads and characters to follow, and the story gets very dramatic in places. But I think the romance between Amy Dorrit and Arthur Clennam is probably the most beautiful of all of these I've mentioned so far, and it just, it gets me every time. And even though the story has many dark and sad twists to it, I think the way Dickens is rooting for his heroine and the way she rises out of these circumstances is just so beautiful. And Arthur Clennam is truly one of the best of these romantic leads that you'll meet in these stories. He's got such a good heart and such a noble character. So, yeah. Little Dorrit is maybe not the most famous on this list, but it will always be number 1 in my heart. That's my top 10 films you could watch instead of Wuthering Heights. Let me know what your favorites are. If there's any I've not seen, perhaps, I'm always open to ideas. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And I'll see you next time.